Hey all! So in my continued quest for an even more ridiculously 70s van, this 90s steering wheel is going away. So this is an airbag steering wheel. I'm all for safety. However, this is a first-gen airbag. They're not as good as the modern ones. But the bigger problem is that this one's actually split in the center here. If you look carefully through the hole, you can actually see the airbag itself. That means that moisture gets in here. That means that can cause all kinds of issues, which means this airbag doesn't necessarily function correctly. It could potentially not go off in an accident. It could potentially go off wrong. There's even a small chance it could do the Takata thing of like having corrosion in here such that it actually like fires shrapnel at me. So I don't really trust this airbag, and it's ugly. And there's not really a good alternative. Like I can buy another vintage airbag, which is not a really good option. So I've decided I'm willing to take the safety risk for myself because I'm the one who drives the van. So I'm going to remove this airbag and replace it with a aftermarket non-airbag wheel. Unlike things like the transit seat that I put in, I'm willing to make compromises to my own safety because they're my own choices, but anybody else is riding in the van, I don't make compromises for their safety, which is why the transit seats all got integrated seat belts and is properly mounted with heavy-duty mounts and whatnot so that anybody riding in that seat is completely safe. So anyway, this airbag's gonna come out. I've got a shiny new one. It's sitting over there. You're gonna have to watch me get this one off before you get to see that one. Let's get to work. Oh, I just want to point out, I have these Allen key things, which are actually really nice. They're the ball end Allen keys, which mean you don't have to have it 100% straight in the socket. But whatever psychopath decided that the Allen key set should be tightened with an Allen key, like, what? You're just a horrible human being. I cannot explain it enough how much you are. Aha! Success! Now, this yellow wire is the airbag igniter. This is the horn here. That one's not a big deal. This one's the big deal. And then just because I'm a little paranoid around airbags, I'm actually going to put myself not in the... Come on, little buddy. I'm going to put myself not in the path of the airbag while I disconnect this, just in case it goes off. I would rather it punch the seat really hard than my face. So yeah, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. Haha, now this airbag's perfectly safe. Next step, I have to get this big nut off of here. Now, obviously you need to take the nut off to take the wheel off, but generally the best course of action is to get this nut off and then thread it back on a couple threads so that when you're pulling on the steering wheel to get it off, it doesn't come loose in a way that also punches you in the face. The nut will keep it from coming all the way off. Because once it's free of the shaft that it's splined onto, like right now I can't move it, but if it were to come off that spline, it would then pop free pretty easily. So this is a universal puller kit. Hopefully one of these will shred into here. So the steering wheel has two threaded bosses on either side of the main nut for the express purpose of putting a puller like this in. Okay, well that's a problem. So it just stripped out the threads on one side here. I'm going to try and ram it down further. I'm not reusing the steering wheel, so I'm not too... If I trash the threads but get the steering wheel off, that's a perfectly valid end of solution for me. Now it just snapped off. Okay, so now we have a new problem. The bolt just snapped off in the steering wheel. I'm going to try and pull it with just one because all it needs to do is pop loose. Nope. Now that was bent, but not loose. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it off by just yanking on it, so I'm going to try the brutal method. That is jammed on those splines. So I've drilled into the snapped off bolt. I've now got an easy out in here that's probably going to snap off in the bolt because that's 80% of my experience with easy outs. They are the most misnamed tool on the planet, and the fun thing is when the easy out snaps, it leaves hardened steel stuck in there, which is worse than the bolt that was stuck in there in the first place. Yeah, it's not getting anywhere. Now I'm at the point where I'm back at the threads on one part, but have part of the bolt in on the other. The sensible thing to do would be to get that out and then retap this hole. I'm not likely to do the sensible thing. I just need to jam something in there that's strong enough to take the force once. Hell, I'm half tempted to just weld the bolt in place. Why shouldn't I? It's a stupid idea. That's a reason not to. When I come back, unless I think of a better idea while I'm at work, I'm going to come back out here and the snapped off bolt is going to get fed through this and then welded into the steering wheel. So I've welded this on. I welded both bolts in place on the theory that if this one's already snapped, this one might snap. So now I get to put the gun on this and pray that what happens now is the steering wheel pops off instead of something else breaking. And it just snapped all the welds. I've just reached the point where I'm just throwing everything I can at this because it has to come out. This wasn't supposed to be the hard part. Not sure what was supposed to be the hard part, but it certainly wasn't undo the steering wheel. Alright, attempt number 2, the hotter weld. Attempt number, you keep count, I've lost count. So the weld tore off the inner plate, stayed on the outer plate, so it's bending all over the place all over again. This is absurd. I've never had a steering wheel fight me this hard. I've never had a steering wheel tear itself apart rather than come loose. Back into place by hitting the head of that bolt. Okay, that actually got me a little bit straighter on. Maybe I can put a weld in there. Let's try it. Will it work? Doubtful. And now the other bolt has broken. Remember that old thing about leave the nut on so that if the steering wheel pops off, you don't punch yourself in the face? You feeling the irony yet? I think, you know, if I go in and I drill that and I drill that, I might be able to pop the whole steering wheel off without having to cut it up. So for that idea, that didn't pop it loose at all. Oh, right. Because I have a screw in there that's now welded in place. The irony, it burns us. Alright, attempts number added to the list. Hacksaw blade. What I've done is, these are normally rounded at the end. I've cut it at a slash so that the teeth can get all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to try and come in here like this and saw through that center piece to the splines and hope that that'll release the tension, the clamping force on the splines and allow it to come off.
Later. One eternity later.
So somebody sent me a video of a technique to get the wheel loose. I think I'm way past it, but we're going to try it anyway, which is to pull up on the wheel with your leg, so you're applying pressure this way, put something soft on the center shaft, and whack it, and supposedly the wheel will pop loose. Of course, the video he sent me, the guy in the video says, I'm glad that worked because it usually doesn't. Yep, that was completely ineffective. It's done nothing. The wheel hasn't shifted or moved or anything. Alright, I have no idea how, but I got my compressor working again. I think I might have had a stuck limit switch or something because I moved it to go return it and it started working. But either way, that means I can try to use this to cut the other side in hopes of freeing this up. I don't have high hopes for it, but I'll give it a shot.
Eventually.
Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Oh! So I've split the hub now. The lower part of this is separate from the top. The problem with that being that because of the angles I cut, the top is still more than 50%, which means it's not releasing the same way that the bottom is, but it's got a less firm grip now than it did a little while ago. About to give this a good yank, so I'm going to be not stupid and put the washer back on, like I described at the beginning. Where is my brass punch? Where? Aha, there. That's my brass punch. I can't believe this is so thoroughly jammed on here that even with it, the hub, the centerpiece split in half, it won't release. If I can get, maybe if I can get this to catch the lip here, I can push it away a little bit. Yeah, this is so ridiculous. Like, I can, if I flex the wheel, this opens up enough that I could literally put something in there. Not something big, but I could get something in there. There's a distinct gap. But the top will not release. Ah! We've got movement! Here's the nut. Don't want to punch myself in the face. That would be just the perfect end to this, wouldn't it? Ha-ha! I am invincible! Alright, just so I can make it very clear what I had to do here. That's the first cut. That went most of the way through, but I couldn't get the back of it. Because you can see how deep the hub is. And I wasn't getting my full cut all the way through it. Because of the saw I was trying to use, I didn't have enough clearance. So this is my second cut from the other side with the air saw that went all the way through, and I was able to split this one, which then cracked this one because of the pressure. But because my cuts are not exactly opposite each other, this still was more than 50%, which means it still had a grip on the teeth here. But yanking and flexing on it, I was able to move it enough that it eventually shimmied itself loose. So here's what I'm left with. This damage here I'm not terribly concerned about because this is the clock spring for the airbag. I do not need the airbag clock spring because I'm not putting an airbag back in here. Now the next step is the new steering wheel. You can see the glory and wonder of what I have purchased. It is this. This is red metal flake vinyl. There you go. I think you can kind of catch it in the light now. It is shimmery, it is shiny, it is ridiculous. So that's where I am. Got a steering wheel. Overall, I'm happy with it. A little bit of niggling stuff I got to deal with, but overall, tell me this isn't cool. So that'll be it. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.